I discovered more progressive music.
Pink Floyd,
Rush,
Dream Theater.
are they actually playing this stuff live? This is impossible.
So the first riff I ever learned was actually from Hey Hey My My, Neil Young, and I'd gone over to Kevin Moore's house. Kevin Moore was the original keyboard player in Dream Theater. We were best friends growing up on Long Island. He lived right around the corner. He was having a jam session, and they needed somebody to play the guitar line, and I don't remember who taught it to me. I learned it and was struggling, couldn't play it, but it was the first thing I learned was the Neil Young riff.
You know, what got me into playing guitar was all my friends were playing. I was like the last guy out of like 6 of my buddies who were all playing guitar. And they were all doing all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. What is all that stuff? You know, that's really cool. So, you know, when I first heard Van Halen, it was actually when I saw Van Halen, I saw Eddie Van Halen play. I looked up and I said, man, that's what I want to do with my life. You know, riffs like
2008 or 9, like this song from these years. With jamming with my friend was on the drums, and at the time I listened to a lot of Lamb of God, Chimera, stuff like that, and yeah, try to play music a little bit similar to them. We have like Two Empires Collide and Outlander from like 1 month jamming, and this song are from jams, you know. Because Lamb of God used it as groovy, like, and also harmonical. It's like kind of Lamb of God. This. So it's like kind of Lamb of God. But when Tati recorded vocals, it was like, wow, it's not Lamb of God.
I discovered more progressive music, and Neil Peart was my guy. I mean, he was my hero. Through all my teenage years, I became the biggest Rush fanatic, learning all of Neil's parts. And like John Bonham, Neil had all these legendary drum parts. The intro to Lakeside Park. Of course, the big fill at the beginning of the 2112 Temples of Syrinx is a classic. Of course, you know this one. And then the drum fills in the middle, of course. And the big one. So it was all those really cool Neil Peart isms that I cut my teeth on. That's how I learned how to play a big drum kit, play progressive music, play odd time signatures, and for so many years, Neil was my biggest drum hero.
The first piano part I ever learned, well, that's a tough question because, you know, I was a classically trained pianist and I didn't really start to play pop or rock or anything like that for a while. But the one that I really remember learning was the Bach Prelude in C. And the reason I remember it so much is because this was the piece that I prepared for Juilliard when I was 9 years old. Actually, preparation began when I was 8 years old. So I learned it, I went into Juilliard, I played it for my teacher, I started to improvise, and she freaked out because improvisation was not allowed at Juilliard. But this was the piece.
日本のバンドのまあいろんなバンドのコピーで一曲丸ごとっていうよりかこのフレーズが弾きたいとか、まあ、そういうのでコピーしてたかな。まあ速いリフをまあ弾けるようになったのはあるかな、10年前ぐらい。ちょっと昔になるけど、まあ、デビューした時のアルバムの中のまあ曲とかはまあ分かりやすい。
First riff or song that made me want to play guitar or bass. I did pick up guitar first before I played bass. One of those guys. But it wasn't until I heard Kiss Alive 1 and the song Deuce really is the thing that really did it for me. It's such a simple thing, but it's so heavy. I was sold after that.
My dad got me a Venom live video and I listened to it and it was just amazing, the raw power and everything. And I remember like playing the Countess Bathory riff over and over again. A Creator, their 90s, 80s and 90s catalog is just mind-blowing, fantastic. Yeah, the Flag of Hate was such a cool riff.
Another band that really had an impact on me was Radiohead, and as I was in high school, they were pretty much forming the soundtrack of my years there. And me and the singer Ross were actually in a cover band called Lost Child, and we got the name Lost Child from the OK Computer cover. This one is Paranoid.
And with Rush, I mean, there's so many amazing Rush albums, but actually the very first one has a lot of the more kind of rock, like Zeppelin-ish songs, and we used to jam on that stuff all the time. My friends and I. Working Man was a favorite one because it had this like extended guitar solo section, and I just loved it. But yeah, the main opening riff in Working Man was one of my favorites.
Another big influence was Iron Maiden. When I learned that, I was, again, like, wow, that's so chunky and it sounds so, you know, the harmony notes in there made it sound orchestral, kind of like, you know, so many guitars going on. It was like classical music, but with a distortion pedal, like metalized.
Nowadays, I like this who is gonna be the one riff, you know? So it's like...
Yeah, it's a good riff. We still play that song. Yeah, if you ask me, I really love the intro part of Judgment and Punishment. Yeah, nice riff, very groovy.
Iron Maiden's drummers, Clive Burr and Nico McBrain, also were drummers that had classic drum intros. Of course, some of the famous Clive Burr ones. course, you have The Prisoner. Some really cool stuff on the earlier albums. So Clive was this drummer that had these really cool drum parts, but then they got the new guy in 1983, and you drop the needle on Peace of Mind, and this is the first thing you hear.
When I was back at Juilliard, all the other kids were jamming in the garages and out on their decks, and I was always home practicing. And my brother used to go to these jams, and one day he convinced me to get out of the house, or maybe more like it, convinced my mother to let me out of the house since I was practicing for my Juilliard concerts and everything. And my brother turned me on to this song, Light My Fire. So I haven't played it in probably 50 years, but that was like the first thing that I had to learn. Very rockin'.
でも俺らは音楽性がいろいろ変わっていくから、この一曲をずっとやり続けるってことはあんまなくて、やっぱその時その時自分たちが新しいものをやっていってるから、今新しい曲っていうか。多いな。
Some favorite enslaved riffs of mine I'd like to show you. I do like the one, like the verse on Alpha Rodin from our first Split album.
One night I got chatting to a guy who went by the name of Hardcore Will, and he was the flyer guy, and he used to hand out the flyers at every show that I went to. And we got chatting about guitar-based music or just heavy music in general. And I was like, Metallica are the greatest band of all time. Kirk Hammett is the greatest guitarist ever. And he said, yeah, they're great, but you need to check out Dream Theater. They're insane. And John Petrucci is just on another level. He's totally out there. So the next day I was fascinated. So I went to my local record store and bought Awake, and I gave Ross, the Haken singer, a phone call, and also my mate Matthew Marshall, who was the original Haken guitarist. And I was like, guys, you've got to come over. I've got this insane album, we need to listen to it. So we sat down in my bedroom and we just listened to it from start to finish, and we were just looking at each other throughout the whole album thinking, this can't be real. Are they actually playing this stuff live? This is impossible. So we watched some videos, and yeah, they were actually playing it. And it was one of those watershed moments that really showed us what could be achieved in a band setting. And it really spurred us on to form Haken, so we owe them quite a bit. This one is one of my favourite riffs from the album, and it's a Rotomania from Awake.
My favorite Dream Theater riffs are usually the ones that elicit a great crowd response. And, you know, I just love kind of writing and playing riffs like that, especially live. The latest album, Distance Over Time, there's a song called Barstool Warrior. And I just knew, like, when we wrote it, that I knew it was going to kind of elicit that reaction. And sure enough, it has. And I love playing it live. All right, so another favorite Dream Theater riff of mine is from the Awake album, and it is the first song that I wrote when getting my first 7-string guitar. It's The Mirror. It's really simple. It's literally one chord and a certain rhythm that keeps repeating, but whenever we play this song live, it just gets the audience so pumped. And I love the opening, which is a little bit of this kind of backwards pick scrape. It goes like this.
Some of my favorite Mastodon riffs, I mean, there's a lot, but some that stick out to me, you know, it's just totally aggro, just going for it, like Crusher Destroyer, which is... Sleep in the Deep.
Retrospection, I love it a lot. We started playing this song
played.
live. Great song, really.
Then came the world of metal, and around the early to mid 80s, when the whole thrash scene was coming out, I got really into all those early Metallica albums: Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, Overkill, Flotsam and Jetsam, Exodus. That whole scene was a huge, huge influence on me, and there were a lot of great drummers that had some incredible drum parts. Charlie Benante was a huge influence. I was a big, big SOD fan. I mean, Speak English or Die was like the first time you ever heard blast beats, and that album was a huge influence. But even from the very, very first Fistful of Metal album, and then of course you have Dave Lombardo.
There's so many albums that I've done with Dream Theater, and it was hard to go back and pick some of my favorite parts. But I picked a few that always get me excited to play live and are just really, really fun. The first would be the opening of Dance of Eternity. And then finally, the progressive section in the middle of Dark Eternal Night. There's one part in particular that's really, really cool. Let's check it out.